Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. As usual, I will be giving just 1 minute to allow you guys to come in before we start the business of the day. But even as we wait for the 1 minute, I just want to ask each and every one of you, how have you guys been? How is the weather treating you? Philly, Philly is kind of hot this afternoon. Those at work, those at work working remotely, how has it been? Hope it's been fun. And those are caught up in traffic, those on break. Hope everything is moving on smoothly. I can see from my list a couple of familiar names on my attendees list. You guys are welcome. Today is indeed a good day. In the next 2 minutes, I would definitely tell you guys why I decided to tag today a good day. Like I said 1 minute ago, I was going to allow you guys, most of you guys, to come before we start the business of the day. I can see we've got quite a number of people. I guess I'll just take it up from here. Good afternoon once again and welcome. My name is Gagba Hayat. That's for those of you that are joining us for the first time. I am a training coordinator with the Temple Small Business Development Center. The Temple Small Business Development Center helps small businesses start and grow. We offer free one-on-one consulting and a variety of low to low-cost webinars. We are proud to be part of the nationally accredited network of the Small Business Development Centers, which has over 1,000 networks across the United States. We are here this afternoon for a webinar on digital marketing for skeptics. A copy of the PowerPoint and the link to the recording will be sent to all the attendees. Being a webinar, all the attendees have been muted. However, we always encourage you guys to drop your questions on the Q&A or the chat box. I did say today is indeed a good day. The main reason why I said that earlier on was because, I have a wonderful speaker in our midst today. This is actually the first time I'm actually moderating an event for her. Without further ado, please allow me to welcome my wonderful speaker, even as she takes over the floor for the presentation. Kelly, you're welcome.
Thanks so much for the introduction, Garba. I'm so pleased to be working with the Small Business Development Center at Temple for this presentation. So hello, everyone, and thanks for joining me today for this webinar, Digital Marketing Tips from a Skeptic. So today we're going to examine some data to help us better understand our chances of success when putting ourselves out there online to sell products and services. So let's see here. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that I'm presenting today from my current home in Wisconsin, but I grew up in New Jersey, just outside of Philadelphia. So I'm a Jersey girl, and I'm curious to learn more about you as well. I still have family in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And as a matter of fact, I will be going down the shore to Sea Isle with family this August. So I'm excited to be here in spirit in the Philadelphia area. So let's get me a chance to learn a little bit more about you, and so that we can have some better interaction today. So I've got a few questions here on this slide. If you can just drop in the chat some information about you, what your business does, maybe where you're located, how long you've been in business, and maybe if you have an opinion on what you think has been one of your most successful methods of marketing your business. I'd love to see what some people are putting in the chat. It certainly helps me feel like I'm not just talking to myself when I can see your feedback in the chat. So please go ahead, introduce yourself in the chat, share some information, and I'll try to keep some of those things in mind as we go through the presentation. So I'll look forward to seeing your messages in the chat. All right, hey, State College, Pennsylvania, Penn Stater, and Pittsburgh. Okay, great. It's good to see some information out there, and so keep the information coming. Whoops. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about digital marketing, and I'm doing this from the perspective of a market researcher. So I don't like to make decisions unless I have data. So we're going to use some solid data to help guide us down this decision. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to start by looking at two business owners. And these are kind of an amalgamation of different businesses that I've worked with over the years. And keep it coming with the chats. I love to see where everyone's coming from and what you've been doing. That really helps me as well. More State College folks here. New Orleans. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to look at these two business owners and kind of look at digital marketing from their perspective. So our first business owner is Michelle, and she's currently the CEO of Smith Manufacturing. Now, this is, again, like I said, kind of an amalgamation of different businesses, so not an actual business. And Michelle is the CEO of Smith Manufacturing, which is a family-owned business that she took over for her father. They manufacture hydraulic cylinders and other parts for the agriculture and construction truck industry. And then we've also got Tony of Tony's Electric, and he's an electrician, and he mostly services a local service area of commercial businesses. So we're going to follow their story as we go along and kind of build in the facts, the data, and the decision-making process of digital marketing as it relates to them. And I hope you'll also do the same as it relates to you. And I see someone that mentioned Seattle City. So yay. Okay. So let's take a look at Tony and Michelle and where they are right now. They're both trying to grow their business, so that's what they have in common, but they've used different methods in the past. So Tony, in this situation, left his past job to start his own business, and a few customers followed him. He hasn't had a need for a website yet. People know who he is, and his current marketing is the company van and the uniform that he wears, but he knows he'd like to find some more customers. And then we've got Michelle, who is starting to worry a little bit because 20% of her customers make up 80% of her revenue, which is not unusual for small businesses. Most of her customers have come from referrals. She does have a website and some LinkedIn presence, and a lot of her marketing was coming from trade shows pre-pandemic. So those are our two examples. We're going to think about the problem that they're dealing with and how to help them move forward with their marketing, and then see how that connects to what you're doing as well. So in the past, again, as I mentioned, Michelle most especially was focused on meeting people in trade shows. And while those are continuing on, certainly the pandemic caused a huge shift in a lot of in-person networking groups and other trade shows, and that has a big impact on businesses. So how do we move from the past to the present? How do we look into new situations? Oh, I see that, Christina, you're a Tony. And we've got someone from Lebanon, Pennsylvania. I used to live in that area as well. So I'm still enjoying seeing your chat as we do all of this. So the question here is, how do we move from the past to the present, or even the present to the future, to grow our business? If things weren't working in the past, what can we find that might work moving forward? So again, if you have thoughts on what's been working for you, I'll continue to look at those in the chat. And I know a lot of people have been putting some of that in there, and including just a lot of networking, certainly, and getting things going there. So let's take a look at these business owners as they get going. So again, think about if you were to be looking for an electrician, for example, or if you needed to make a purchase as a business owner, how would you go about doing that? So drop some thoughts in the chat how you might do that. My guess is that a lot of people start with people they know. Can you recommend anyone? Can you refer me to a business? However, if you don't know somebody in the industry that you're looking in, then typically the next step is what you see here on the screen. 90% of customers start their buyer journey with an online search. So I'm sure that doesn't surprise you. If you don't know who to reach out to, then typically that's the first step. We all just Google it, right? That's the way we begin. So think about these two businesses that we're looking at, and people are looking for them. The first thing they're going to do is go Google, electrician services, or, they need to buy hydraulic parts or something like that. They're going to start with an online search. And then what happens from there? Well, from there, they typically do a lot of reading. They're reading typically 10 or more pieces of content before they make a decision. So if you don't have that content out there for them to read and learn about what it is you're offering, then it can be challenging for these businesses to get found. So think about your own business and what kind of content you have out there. And now this 10 plus really refers to more like B2B. It may be less than that or a little different for B2C, but certainly people are going online to get information, and then they want to learn more about what they're purchasing before they make a decision, not just about your business, but just about the whole, the product or service that you're selling in general. And so if you can be the person educating them, that can be a really beneficial next step. So in addition, a lot of people now, and this is a change in what we've seen, they're usually more than halfway through the purchase process before they even reach out to a vendor. So in the past, when we talked about marketing, we used to talk about generating leads and then kind of prospecting and getting those leads to, turn into potential customers. What's happening now is that people are kind of self-qualifying themselves as prospects, and they go online and they gather information, and then they reach out to you when they're ready to buy or close to being ready to buy. So they want to make sure they're getting enough information on your website or the other sources that they're finding to get to that point. So the whole concept of lead generation and prospecting, it has shifted over the last few years because of the fact that people are gathering a lot of that information online and trying to get as far through the process as they can. And again, another statistic, 70% of people prefer remote or digital interactions as much as they can get information and get as close to that purchase decision as possible before they talk to somebody. That's the preference. And part of that reason is because right now in the B2B world, nearly 3/4 of buyers are millennials. And millennials typically, as with the generations that are younger than them, tend to prefer online interactions and less on the phone call and personal interaction. So that's, again, another shift that we're seeing in the world around us. And the tendency is to be online. So this is where we're trending. We're trending toward an information where business customers want to learn as much as they can before they interact with anyone that is selling. And partly, again, that's due to the younger age of the professionals making the decision. And of course, certainly the pandemic advanced our online progress significantly. So in this situation, how can we help Tony and Michelle? Now that we know more about how our customers make the decisions, how can we help them find customers or be found by customers? What we're talking about is without an online presence, you're going to miss a significant portion of customers. You might start in the beginning on word of mouth, like I could see Ashley just mentioned that. That's terrific. But typically, as you want to grow, you can't rely exclusively on word of mouth. That becomes more of a challenge. And that's where having a good digital presence can really help. And so all the data that we've looked at so far is certainly demonstrating the fact that it's important to have that online presence. So, but again, small business owners, we all typically have limited time and limited budget. So how do we go about taking advantage of this information to make sure that we can enhance our online presence? So let's take a look at some digital marketing platforms. Aside from what they've already been doing, what other options are available to them? So if we take a look at some of these online options, we've got, social media, we've got email, search engine optimization, and search engine marketing, assuming that you have a website, of course. So we're going to take a look at each of these and look at the data to see how well do these different tools work. And that's going to help drive the decision process as we make some recommendations for Michelle and Tony. Let's start with organic social media. And that would mean just posting things on social media for people to engage with it, not spending any money at this point, just organically posting and trying to get people to engage. And the way that we measure that is typically with an engagement rate. And that is just you take the sum of all of the likes and comments and shares of a particular post divided by the number of fans or followers that you have to get that engagement rate. So, and can you take a guess at what a typical engagement rate might be for any of these social platforms? Or do you know what your engagement rate is if you are tracking those? I'm curious to see if anyone has any sense for what to expect for an engagement rate for social media. Any thoughts on that? Do you expect it to be high? Okay, guessing 25%. Again, in theory, it could be, a high number, because if you've got a lot of engagement on that top piece divided by your number of fans, and it marks as 15. Okay, so again, it's going to vary depending on how many followers or fans that you have. And it's also going to vary depending on, how active you are on social media. So there are some things that are variable, but there also are some general averages. So let's take a look at what the data tells us. Let's start with Facebook, which is the most popular platform for marketing, not always the ideal one for B2B, but certainly very popular for B2C marketing. And the average engagement rate on Facebook is 0.27%. So pretty low. And again, keep in mind that this is people who already know you exist, who are engaging with your content. And if we look at Instagram, Instagram has been growing in popularity It's been very popular source of marketing for B2C and has even been increasing in popularity for B2B. It has the highest engagement rate, so there's a clue for you, at 1.16%. LinkedIn is more of an ideal platform for B2B marketing as opposed to Facebook, slightly higher than Facebook at 0.35%. And then finally, Twitter engagement rate here, unless you're a politician or a news journalist, engagement rates are very low, and that's the average engagement rate across all industries for Twitter. So think about what these numbers are telling you. This is of the people who are already following you, less than 1% actually engage with your posts on social media. And I see Amanda posted a question. I have not been able to find TikTok engagement rates for business, but I'm sure there's some data out there. So it would be interesting to see what that is. I know it's been growing tremendously, TikTok as a method of outreach, especially for B2C, but also for B2B. So maybe the rates are higher than this, but it's hard to say. So again, these are people who are already following you, not super active. Think about your own activity on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram. How often do you post or comment or share? You may follow a lot of people, but not necessarily engage. So take a look at those numbers and think about, is that how you want to be spending your time or your money? Can you get an engagement rate higher than that? It should be important to find out what your engagement rate is as well. So now let's say that instead of just posting, now you're paying to sponsor an ad or have something show up in front of more people that are not your followers. That's our social media marketing. So we're moving on from just posting it to whether you're boosting a post or promoting it, sponsoring, whatever you want to call the term, so that it shows up in front of more people. These are people that you don't actually know that are now getting a chance to see what you're doing. So again, let's look at some of the data, and you can see the first bullet point there right away. The average cost per mil, and what that means is cost per 1,000 impressions is $4.33. So bear in mind that this isn't the cost to obtain a customer, it's the cost to get 1,000 potential customers to see your ad. So that's just people seeing your ad is $4.33 per 1,000 impressions. The average click-through rate, so if they see your ad and actually click on something, for social media ads is 1.3%. So even of those people that you've paid to have them see the ad as it goes through the stream of posts is just 1.3%. It is important to note, however, that despite these numbers, social media advertising currently ranks second in success after search engine marketing. So paying can provide some value, but you need to know what kind of value to expect. I saw Kimberly says, cannot hear you. Is anyone else having trouble hearing me? Okay. All right, good to know. All right, let's keep going then. I'm not sure. I'm sorry if you can't hear me. Okay, social media, again, advertising ranks second in success after search engine marketing. And then here's the average social media spend for small businesses, $4,000 to $7,000 a month. So again, think about how much are you currently spending on social media marketing versus the time that you're spending on organic posts. Do you have some idea on what kind of return you're getting on that investment? So any of you that are either posting online or boosting or paying to promote social media, do you have any thoughts, or do you know what kind of return you're getting on that investment? Do you measure the engagement rate or the click-through rate at all? I'm curious to see what people are doing. Any thoughts? I don't see any comments, so I guess we'll keep going. Trying to convert engagement into sales. Okay, yeah, again, that can be a challenge with social media marketing. So let's think about this now. Are you, after seeing some of these data points, are you skeptical about spending money on social media marketing? What kind of return on investment might you get, and how might Tony and Michelle make these decisions on how to use social media? The data doesn't make me super enthusiastic. Let me just put it that way. So let's take a look at some other tools for engagement. Very skeptical. Yeah. All right, let's take a look at email marketing now. Now, of course, for email marketing to work, first you need to be collecting email addresses of your customers and then following any spam regulations, maintaining the privacy and so forth. So again, these are people who have already heard of you and have chosen to subscribe to your email list. And of those people, the open rate is less than a quarter of them will even open the email. So they've subscribed to your email, they've received it in the mail, and less than a quarter even open the mail. And then this is the open rate. Oops. There we go, the click-through rate. About 2 to 5% of those on your list will click on any of the links in your email to, follow through on the information. And so that click-through rate is relatively low. Again, these are people that know you exist, already subscribed to your email, got the email, and then they, opened it and clicked through the rate. And then there's another statistic here, which is our click to open rate. And that's the rate of unique users who received your email and opened a link. So it's kind of combining those two together. And of course, these are, again, already people who know who you are and subscribe to your email posts. So what about those who don't? You're still missing that audience. So again, a question for you, do you have an email list? Do you collect emails regularly? Do you send out newsletters or blogs by email? Does anyone do anything to do with email? I've found that email can be sometimes more successful than social media because you have no control over what people are seeing in the stream of posts that they are sending. And at least when you're sending an email, it's going directly to your customers. But again, this data is showing you that some of them aren't even opening the mail. And if they open it, they may just read it and not click through to any of your posts. So there's a challenge there as well. So yeah, I would certainly recommend trying to build an email list, but then you have to kind of make a commitment to how you're going to use it and what kind of messaging you're going to send. So let's move from email on to search engine optimization. And so this is, again, referring to organic searches that bring people to your website through the use of keywords in your content. Do you have a sense for where your business ranks on the search page for different searches? Have you ever Googled your business name or Googled some of the keywords that you think people would use to find you to see where you show up? You might be surprised in some cases where you show up. And so let's take a look at some of the data here. I think this chart tells a lot. So let's discuss and unpack this information here. The key takeaway to me is that Google is working super hard to make it super easy for people to find answers to their Google questions without having to actually leave Google. These are considered zero-click searches. So a zero-click search means that you typed something into the Google question box and Google popped up with the search engine results page, and you found your answer on that page without ever clicking on any of the links that showed up in that search engine results page. So think about some of the Google searches that you've done in the past. Sometimes you just want to know something quick, like is the store open, what are their hours? And Google will just give you that answer from the website without having you go to the website to get that answer. Now, if you are the owner of that business, you might think that's handy that people can find out right away, but you're missing out on the opportunity for them to actually go to your website and see what else you might have posted there. So right now, if you combine all different methods, desktop and mobile, those zero-click searches make up about 2/3 of all Google searches. Organic searches make up about 1/3, and then there's a tiny sliver for those paid Google click-through rates. So now, again, if you think back to times that you have done a Google search, how often does it show up that you end up clicking through something, or how often do you end up just staying right on that original first page? So how do you get yourself to be the answer to the question? That's one of the tricks, which can be challenging for a small business owner. Or how do you get people to actually find your website? So if we take a look at just desktop searches, which might be more of the case for business to business, that they're more often on a desktop than a mobile, you can see that the numbers look a little bit better. In this case, about half of the searches do end up going to a website like yours might be. And then just less than half are those zero-click searches, and then a little sliver again for the paid searches. So, and then you can see comparing the desktop searches on the left to mobile only on the right. certainly you can see that when people are on their phones, they're much more likely to just find the answer that they're looking at. Yes, CTR is click-through rate. So the question is, if someone does a Google search and then the search engine results page shows up, do they get the answer just looking at that page, or do they click on one of the links? And that would be a click-through rate. And you want them obviously to click on your website to get more information about you. So organic click-through rate, or CTR, are people that do a Google search and then pick one of the links that shows up on that Google search to go to a different website rather than just that search engine results page. So organic meaning that you didn't pay for it. And of course, paid, that you did pay to have an ad that makes it stand out to more people, or you paid for the keyword or something. So what we're seeing is that it can be more and more challenging because Google is becoming so successful at answering everyone's questions that you never have to leave Google. And of course, as business owners, we want people to leave that search engine results page and go to our website to learn a little bit more. So one way to do that is through search engine marketing. And so let's explore that a little bit further, because that's one of the ways that people try to stand out a little bit more, is by paying to show up better on Google. So I've got an example here. So if the majority of people find what they need without ever leaving the first page of Google, think about what that means for your business. So in this example, from my phone, I searched electricians near Temple University. And you can see that, first of all, the first several answers that come up are ads. You can see everything circled in blue here is an ad. And then you can also see that it lists a series of different businesses that are electricians in the area, no link to their website. It just gives you the Google review stars and maybe some small amount of information about where they're located and what their hours are. And then certainly you can click on the call button. So again, even if you are showing up on this list, which is handy, no one's going to your website. I'm not sure if I would just directly call a number without digging in a little bit further. But think about how you show up online as people are looking for you. First of all, you want to show up on any lists of local providers, especially if you're an electrician like Tony that's servicing a particular service area. So, but what does it look like? What kind of information are people getting? And if you're not advertising, are you being found at all? Because you can see how the ads tend to dominate. So now let's say you decide to pay for an ad in Google to increase your odds of potential customers finding you. Whoops, sorry about that. So in this case, I pulled out an example that I knew would turn out in my favor. And this, I'm looking directly at HubSpot, which is a small business database or CRM, customer relationship management, that can help you grow your business. And so if I just Google HubSpot directly, look what shows up. The first thing that shows up that with the top arrow is HubSpot, of course, because I just Googled it, but it's an ad, it's a paid ad. So even though I'm looking for them directly on a Google search, they still paid to have their name be a keyword as a paid search. And then the second post here is actually a competitor of HubSpot that also paid, and same thing for the third. So the first three are all ads, and then the first organic post then is HubSpot. So it would seem like kind of an unnecessary expense to pay to have your name show up on the top if people are already know who you are and are Googling you. But what happens if you don't do that? Here you can see an example with Basecamp, which is project management software that I've used. And here, if you Google Basecamp directly, you don't see them until a couple lines down. And that's because two of their competitors chose Basecamp to be a keyword that they advertise on, to say there's a better alternative. Don't use Basecamp, use us. And so again, you can see that if you don't advertise, your competitors might show up in front of you. And if you do advertise, you're actually paying to show up for people that are searching and already know you exist. So there's a lot of challenges that come with these Google searches at this point. Now, these might not happen as quickly or easily with a small business competitor, but we did have, I know in our town, we had a big challenge where a lot of people were complaining because the local trash companies were using their competitors' names as keyword searches and trying to convince people to switch over. a little bit too aggressively, apparently. So it got to be a big topic in the news. So think about what happens when you do a search for your own business. Do any competitors show up? What kind of information are they getting when they do those searches? So, and again, think about the dominance of Google. Google is really focused on Google more than anything else. And so they're doing things to make as much money as possible and to be as dependent, perhaps to have people be as dependent on them as possible. So as a matter of fact, if you can take a look here, and I apologize, it's a little bit blurry from where the source came from, but this is the market share of search engines from 2019. The top 3 search engines today are Google, which is the blue, Google Images is the red. So really that's both Google. And then after that comes YouTube and Amazon. So if you look at this graph, you can see that not only does Google dominate with nearly 70% market share, just the blue, but Google Images with 20%, and then YouTube with 3%, and Amazon with 2%. The remaining market share is tiny. So Google really is kind of in charge of this market. So, and then a reminder on paid marketing. If you even do pay for ads on Google, potential customers will click on those ads less than 2% of the time on average. So, so what to do after all that information on all these different sources? Perhaps you are just as skeptical as I am at this point about how to really be found when you're trying to get increase your online presence and help find new customers. So what do people like Tony and Michelle do to navigate this online world when it seems like all the odds are stacked against us? We don't have limitless time and money to do this. So what are some options? Well, you can play along with Google, try to optimize your online presence, maybe work to show up as an authority for questions on that search engine result page for that zero search. You can extend your keywords to more detailed or specific phrases, which can help with organic or paid searches. A protest to your local politician that Google is dominating the online world and you're not happy about it, but I can't guarantee anything is going to happen there. So what can we do? That's what we're going to discuss moving forward. Here are some 6 ways to advance your B2B digital marketing. So let's take a look at some of these. The first one is to make sure that when they do get to your website, that it is providing the information that they're looking for and that they stick around and try to learn some information. So again, think about what we talked about. 90% of people begin with an online search and they want to read a lot of content. So how can you make sure that when people go to your website, they want to stick around? So what does your website do to make sure it's drawing people in? So if we look at your website, these are some key components that you should make sure you have. You want to make sure your website is customer friendly so that the focus is on your customer and not on you. You don't want to talk all about we do this and we do that and so forth, but focus on your customer and the problem that they have and the fact that you can solve that problem for them. You want to make sure it's super easy for them to get in front of you by having contact information on every page. That would include an email, a phone number. You want to make sure you have, a box for them to contact us for more information, anything to make it easy for them to take action. And every page of your website should have some way for them to take action, and it should be very easy for them to find. So also it helps, especially if you're B2B or if you have different types of customers, whether they're B2B or B2C, you want to make sure that you have examples that are specific to their industry or customer type that they can relate to. So instead of just being very general about the services or products that you're selling, let them see themselves, let them be able to identify with what you're offering to them by having pages that are specific to different types of customers, or perhaps showing case studies that you've worked with different businesses or examples of how you've solved problems for different businesses. It certainly also helps to have testimonials from your customers. Buyers who don't know you yet are going to be looking for some kind of social proof that you're a valuable supplier to your customers. And so the more testimonials, the better. And then of course, if you have local clients like Tony, the electrician, you want to make sure you're taking advantage of Google My Business, because then you will show up on any of those maps or online searches or when people are looking for something near them. So pay close attention to getting onto the Google My Business, and also look at the Google reviews and any other platforms that provide reviews. So if you've got positive reviews, first of all, they may show up on that search engine results page, but you also want to be sharing that information on your website. So how does your current website stack up to this list of suggestions for a customer-friendly website. It's important to look at your website from the perspective of a customer and see, is the messaging I'm giving about them or is it about me? So that you can make sure that people can relate to that website. So think about how yours stands out. And there is a handout that you'll be getting later that can give you an idea to how to go about doing this. So let's take a look then at our tip number 2. And tip number 2 is really to make sure that you fully understand who your target customers are, that we have clear and understanding and can define them with a level of different characteristics. So for example, if you're selling business to business, B2B, you should know the NAICS code, that's an industry code, North American Industry Classification System code for your customers. What NAICS code are they under? Are you selling specific to a business location? Or is it anywhere? Are you selling to a particular business size? Are you focused more on small businesses or big business or government? Do you sell to private businesses or publicly held businesses that are much larger? Do they have a single location, multiple locations? The more you can describe your customer with some characteristics like what you see here, if you're selling to businesses, or characteristics of the actual individual, age group, education level, any different characteristics, gender, that help you better understand and identify to your customer and make sure that your messaging is targeted to those particular customers. That can be the best way to do this. So how do you go about doing that? I do recommend creating personas. You want to start with your existing customers, especially those that you think are the most profitable, and think about how you might define them by some characteristics. As you define them, then you can look for more customers like those top customers. So if you are dealing with businesses as your target customers, then a database like Data Axle can be a great resource. Data Axle is a database directory of businesses that is available free at many public libraries. I did a little search and I can see that Data Axle is available in this area: the Huntington Valley Library, the Camden County Library System, the Penn Library at University of Pennsylvania. But again, check your public library and see if they have Data Axle as a free resource for you, because this is a database that contains just a ton of information about businesses, their contact information, where they're located, how big they are, what their annual revenue is, and all kinds of classification on the industries that they play in with that NAICS code. It's a great starting point for outreach. I wouldn't recommend using it as like a cold call list, but a terrific way to familiarize yourself with what businesses are out there that you can start targeting. And so here you can see an example. In this example, I pulled up manufacturers of agriculture equipment in Pennsylvania for Michelle. So what you can see here is just a screenshot of what you can pull up. This information can be exported into Excel, and it has a ton of information and can be a really valuable way for businesses to see their target customers and get some more information about them and kind of figure out how to better connect. So have any of you used a database like this? Or there are other ones you can purchase? Zoom Info is another one. It can be a great resource for business to business. Less so, of course, if you're selling to consumers. But in that case, the better you can define that persona, the better off you likely are. Yeah, Dun & Bradstreet's another one, absolutely. There are several different databases like that, and it can be beneficial. Again, I do not recommend cold calling people. No one's a fan of that typically. And I haven't seen a lot of success, from the clients that I work with, but just familiarizing yourself with who's out there and who your ideal customer is, and then kind of doing a little research on them online to understand where they're finding their information could be really beneficial. So step number 3 is to become a source of valuable information. If you recall, people go online before they're making their purchase decision to learn. And they're looking at, 10 or more pieces of content. Is any of that content coming from you? That's what you want to be able to do. So how do you find this content to create content? That can be a real problem for people. Where do I get this information? So if you're reaching out directly to companies or putting a blog together for emails or anything like that, Then take advantage of some of these tools that can help you stay informed on the news in your industry and share information with your prospective customers. Then they will become to see you as an authority in your field, and they'll be more likely to want to do business with you. And this certainly applies to both B2B and B2C. So how do you find those relevant news stories when you don't have time already to manage your sales and marketing and all the other things you do, all the hats you're wearing as a small business owner? Take advantage of some of these tools to help you. Google Alerts is free, and you can type in keywords and it will alert you by email if any of those terms show up in news stories. You can have it send you a daily digest or every time it shows up or weekly or whatever. So maybe if you've got some target customers, you want to add a Google alert with their name. You might want to put a Google alert for your own business name or anything else that you think is going to be helpful for you to know about. The Google alert is one way to do that. Of course, the caveat is don't put anything too general in there. You don't want to put like electrician, because the number of times that term shows up is going to be huge and it may not be beneficial. Pocket is a tool that I use that helps you save news stories and attach keywords to them so that you can find them later. So as you see stories that you think might be relevant for some of the content that you're writing, whether it's on a website or blog posts, then you can refer back to it by using those keywords. And then Feedly is a tool that helps aggregate news on a particular topic from a variety of sources, whether you subscribe to them or not. So have any of you used any of these tools before? Do you use Google Alerts? Are you familiar with Feedly or Pocket? And I see Mary Ellen has used reference solutions. Again, yeah, take advantage of what you can. Pocket, Sean. So let's take a look at an example of Feedly. And in this example, I typed in hydraulic cylinders to see what shows up. And what Feedly will do is recommend top journals that you can start following. It will look for that keyword. You can see it's highlighted there. And it will point out stories to you with just a quick little overview, a picture and a few sentences. And then you can decide if that's information that is interesting enough that you want to use it or pass it along or anything. And so every day or every week, you can check your Feedly feed, see what has showed up in it, and then see if you want to use that to create content or answer questions, just give you an idea of what's going on in the industry around you. And again, the goal is to become a source of valuable information for your customers. Related to that is also to think about how to find your customers where they are. You can create content or curate content to attract customers. Yes, a lot of these are free resources, absolutely. So if we go back to Feedly has a free version. Google Alerts is always free, and Pocket has a free version. And then here we're looking at ways to find your customers where they are. All of these are free as well. So what we're trying to do is spend time where your customers are hanging out, where to find them. It might, in the past, you might go to trade shows or, get in front of people on networking events. There are other ways to do this now, and these are some tools that can be really valuable. So let's take a look at some of these. Reddit and Quora are not the place to go to get data, but you can find great information and discussions that could be relevant to your business, whether it's B2B or B2C. Take a look. Reddit has a reputation for doing all kinds of crazy things, but you might be surprised how much helpful information you can find there. And you can see here, I found on Reddit, Electricians of Reddit, that has thousands of followers, and people post questions and answer the questions. So it can be a great place to gather information, to hear what your potential customers are talking about, and be able to even insert yourself and answer questions right in Reddit, or use that information to help better understand what's going on in your customer base. The same thing holds true for Quora. And here I found a Quora group that's called Hydraulics and Pneumatics. And in Quora, everyone's asking questions. And so you can be the authority figure by answering the questions, or you can just kind of read the information and gather what some of the top issues or concerns are for your customers. So has any of you use Reddit or Quora or follow anything on these sources right now? They may be things that you've used, but maybe not for business sources. So again, it can be a great place to gather information or even to ask questions if you're trying to get into a new industry to find out how do people make a purchase decision. Yeah, I see a few people are using these sources already, so that's great. Another source that can be a great source of some valuable information is SparkToro. This is a relatively new tool. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with it. It was created by the former head of the SEO firm Moz. And the logic of SparkToro is that you will do better connecting with your customers by finding them where they are already online, rather than spending all your money on social media marketing and online ads and so forth. So the way it works, and again, there's a free version of SparkToro that you can try and do a certain number of searches per month for free. But what you do is you can put in a phrase. So my audience frequently talks about, and then put in a phrase. Here I just stuck in electrical contracting. You can also say uses these words in their profile. So maybe you want to put purchase manager or something to see what more you can find, follows a particular social account. So you put in these keywords to see what's going on. And then SparkToro will give you information about news journals, websites, podcasts, social media places, other places where people are talking about what you're talking about. So here you can see, these are some screenshots I grabbed for people who are talking about hydraulic cylinders. So again, instead of throwing money at social media marketing or search engine marketing, find alternative places where you can position yourself in front of customers. So maybe you want to go to the Fluid Power World social media account or the Caterpillar podcast and try to speak on that podcast or sponsor the podcast. So finding some of these unique ways to get in front of your customers are going to be less expensive, and you're going to be more focused on those customers than if you were doing some more general advertising. And then LinkedIn, of course, can be another great place to connect with potential customers for B2B. People are out there using LinkedIn already. It's the top social media channel for industrial B2B customers to learn about the latest trends. And then the other thing to look at in LinkedIn are the groups. So LinkedIn offers a wide array of groups. You can do some searching to find groups, and then you may find groups that would be really helpful to your business. So again, if I'm selling hydraulic cylinders to agriculture machinery people, finding these groups and either following them or keeping track of what they're posting or even answering questions as they come up can be a great way for me to connect with customers where they're already located, instead of hoping that they'll find me in some general feed in social media or through a Google search. Then the next step is figure out when they're ready to buy. Again, especially B2B, people are inclined to stick with an existing vendor unless something big happens. Now, of course, a pandemic was a big thing that caused people to change who they work with, and certainly a looming recession might be the same. But another reason a company might be open to trying a new vendor or supplier like your business is because a change is occurring in their own business. So maybe they're building a new facility or relocating, or they have a new executive coming into the C-suite, or they're running into trouble with a shortage that you can address. How do you go about figuring out who's ready to buy? Pay attention to the local news or industry news sources. And here again, there's a screenshot of the Philadelphia Business Journal manufacturing news. Keep up on what's going on, especially if you're concerned about new construction, if that's beneficial for your business, or new manufacturing plants being built, any change in what's going on in the business world. And even if you're selling to consumers, keeping up on the news so that your content can be, trendy and have people find you that way can be beneficial. SparkToro, again, is another place where you can refer back to the sources that they recommended. And then that takes us to our sixth recommendation, which is make personal connections. Now, of course, this probably seems obvious to you, since that's what we typically start to do from the start. But what we're trying to do goes beyond just, the word of mouth type of thing. So let's think about what personal connections really means. You can look at this from several different angles. Not only is it important to personalize your marketing as much as possible, that's where you talk about the personas, but if you want to, use your existing connections with current customers to help you grow your customer base. Referrals and testimonials can go a long way to introducing you to prospective new customers who already know your existing customers. So be sure to regularly ask for referrals or references, and reward customers who refer business to you. So think about that process and what you're doing right now to get testimonials or to get referrals. It can be tricky to ask, but it's always worthwhile to do that. And I've done that myself. And typically, if it's a customer that you've had a good relationship with, they're happy to do that. Some businesses are less happy, especially the larger businesses, to share the business name or their title. But you can still put the testimonial there and just put a large electronics distribution firm or something. So you can just still maintain the privacy of the business, but at least use the testimonial. And you see that in lots of places. It doesn't, diminish the testimonial typically, because you're still sharing an actual quote from somebody. And then also don't forget about LinkedIn. which can be a great way to help connect you with potential customers that are second degree connections. So if you would like to be introduced to somebody and you know someone who knows them, that's what LinkedIn can do for you, which is hugely beneficial. And then look for any events, live or virtual, where you can make those connections to your customers. So here you have this list of my 6 recommendations on how to connect online. It can be challenging for you to be seen through search engine optimization or marketing or social media posts. How to improve your ability to be seen is to take advantage of some of these suggestions. So let's take a quick look then at what maybe Michelle and Tony could be doing with their current situation, and then think about what this might mean for your own situation. So Michelle, I would suggest her starting point would be to review her website. Is it as customer focused as she thinks it is? Does she have examples by customer type or industry? Does she have testimonials? Does she have all that contact information? Can she better define who her target market is and get a list off of something like the data axle? And then start to create content by finding content online with some of those news feeds and putting that information out there. Start sharing that content and make sure you're targeted about where you share it to get in front of people at the right place at the right time. Create those alerts and follow the news, and then start actively seeking out connections on LinkedIn, maybe using that targeted list that you got from Data Axle. Now for Tony, he doesn't have a website yet, so I would tell him to start by creating a basic website and adding Google My Business so people find him when they search electricians near me. Be clear that he can better define his target market by location and size. Look for that list. If you create things like frequently asked questions, then you might find that those can show up sometimes on that search engine results page, and it helps people better understand how they might work with you. And for local businesses, certainly networking groups can be a great way to connect. The online presence complements the in-person presence and vice versa. And following that local business news, you know, when people are remodeling or rebuilding or anything like that, where they might need an electrician, that would be important. So again, think about now next steps for your business. How might you take advantage of some of these tools? Would you make any changes to your website now that you've seen some of these suggestions? Can you clearly define your target market, create a persona of who your ideal customer is, and then seek out some of this content? Now remember, Google Alerts is free, Feedly and Pocket have free versions, SparkToro has a free version, LinkedIn is free, there is a paid version, I've never used it. So what tools can you find that help you gather information, get in front of your customers and provide them with the information that's going to help them as they make a purchase decision? And look for some of those maybe more unconventional ways to do things, like sponsoring a podcast or writing an article for a trade publication or a local journal, joining a LinkedIn group and that type of thing. And that's going to be perhaps more successful than just kind of throwing money at Google Ads or social media postings. So, and then that just takes me to the end. I've answered a few questions already, but if you have additional questions, you can drop them in the chat or the Q&A, and I'd be happy to answer them here in our remaining time. And again, make sure you're tracking returns on your investment, that you have a good handle on what's working and what isn't working for you so that you can move forward and make some intelligent decisions. Look for those things beyond the normal.
Kelly, quick one before we continue. I just want to draw the attention of all our attendees that I did post a 30-second survey about today's webinar. This goes to our attendees. You know, remember, we at Tempo SPDC, we always cherish your feedbacks, even as it helps us to improve on the services we provide to you guys at a no cost. So kindly take 30 seconds of your time to help us to fill out the survey. Thank you. Just like as what Kelly said a few minutes ago, you know, we still have like 5 minutes before we wrap it up for the day. So if you still have 1 or 2 questions, please feel free to drop it either on the chat box or the Q&A section. Thank you.
Yeah, I see Christina had a question in the Q&A that says, how could be optimal ways to get testimonials? As I said, what I typically do is I reach out directly to businesses that I know and just ask them, would they be willing to share a testimonial? In some cases, well, this was more for trying to get, you know, I was support for different organizations that I was getting. If someone's already said something great about you, and you can kind of rephrase it or write it down and say that, this is something you said to me before. Would you be okay if I use this in a testimonial? Whatever you can do to make it be as little work for them as possible and still make them comfortable doing it. That can be a beneficial way to do it. So if you said, last time we spoke, you said this. And if you're still comfortable with that, would you be okay with me using that in a testimonial? I always offer to link back to their website. So when they give a testimonial, I put a hyperlink at that testimonial to their website. So maybe it helps them also have people find them. So, but it really just comes down to asking and just trying to make it as easy as possible. So like if someone asked you for a testimonial, you might be like, I don't know what to say. But if they say, in the past, what you've said is this, are you comfortable with that? That can be kind of an easier way to transition that. I see Darlene asked, what are some free websites for businesses? I'm not sure what kind of websites you're looking for, Darlene, whether you're looking for databases or for setting up a website. But I try to find as many free or low cost tools as possible. If you're trying to set up a website for your own business, the cheapest ways to get started are to use some templates. The best templates that I've seen, GoDaddy and Wix and Squarespace all have tools to create a template, and that's probably the lowest cost way. You still have to pay for hosting and reserving the domain name, and then maybe a little extra if you want to have an email address. And I certainly recommend that you have a business email address. So I wouldn't want, if my business was Tony's Electric, I wouldn't want my email to be, Tony the crazy guy at yahoo.com that he's been using since he was 15. You want a website that's like Tony at Tony's Electric. So think about the message that you're sending with having an email and then a website. The templates that Squarespace and Wix and GoDaddy offer to create websites are super easy, where you're just kind of moving things in. You can use their existing pictures and images, or use your own and put something together relatively quickly. So they're not free, but they're certainly low cost. There are slides that will be available with the all the slides from this. And let's see, if you're looking to find me with any additional questions, certainly you can email me. I put out a bi-weekly blog post, or find me on LinkedIn. So, and one of the other handouts that I have put together is actually just kind of how can I tell if my website is customer friendly? And it shows an example of a bad website and a good website. So all of those will be sent out after this presentation.
Okay, Kelly, thank you for a wonderful presentation. And I also want to use this opportunity to thank each and every one of you guys for keeping it a day with us. Before we wrap it up, I want to use this opportunity to also thank my wonderful colleagues at Tempo SBDC. Thank you for your usual cooperation, for all the hard works. Without them, we wouldn't have had this webinar. They've been supportive. Thank you, and do enjoy the rest of your day. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Kelly, we've tackled virtually all the questions that came up during the presentation, because I can see what's on my chat box, and Q&A is just a thank you, a thank you, a thank you, and thank you. Thank you, and do enjoy the rest of your day. See you some other time. Bye-bye.
Thank you all so much.
Please.